My ex-wife told our daughter I was dead. Then I saw her on the news, and she was playing our song. The Chardonnay was cold, a welcome sensation in my hand after a long day of navigating construction permits and client demands. My girlfriend, Sarah, was curled up on the other end of the sofa, her baby bump just beginning to show beneath her soft cashmere sweater. The local evening news was a dull murmur in the background, a white noise machine of traffic reports and feel-good stories. I was about to suggest ordering Thai, our usual comfort food Friday ritual, when the anchor's voice cut to my fatigue like a shard of glass, and the young pianist, Abigail James, dedicated her stunning performance of Chopin's Nocturne in C-sharp minor to the memory of her late father, who she says always believed in her talent and was the one who first introduced her to that very piece. My blood ran cold, then hot, then seemed to freeze, solid in my veins. Abigail. It's not an uncommon name, but the face that flashed on the screen, serene and focused on the piano keys under the spotlight, was unmistakably my daughter's. My 17-year-old daughter. The daughter who, according to my ex-wife, had been living in Zurich with her maternal grandparents for the past 2 years, attending a world-renowned music academy. Chopin's Nocturne in C-sharp minor. It was our song. I had spent an entire summer, when she was 10, patiently helping her learn the opening bars, my hands guiding her small, hesitant fingers on the keys of our old upright piano. Sarah sat up straight, her book forgotten in her lap. "Michael, what is it? You look like you've seen a ghost." In a way I had. I was the ghost. The late father. The words late father echoed in the silent, spacious living room of the home I'd built after the divorce, a home Abigail had never set foot in. That's my daughter," I stammered, pointing a shaking finger at the screen as if it might bite me. "She's supposed to be in Zurich. That piece," she's playing our song. The segment was over in a minute, but it felt like an eternity. They showed a brief clip of her receiving a standing ovation at the prestigious State Young Artists Competition, an event I knew was held just a 3-hour drive from here. The newscaster mentioned she was a senior at the Lincoln School for the Arts, right here in the state. Switzerland. The lie was so audacious, so complete, so viciously calculated, it stole the air from my lungs. My ex-wife, Evelyn, hadn't just poisoned Abigail against me. She had staged an elaborate funeral for me in our daughter's mind and buried me in a coffin of lies. The divorce from Evelyn 4 years ago was a nuclear winter. It wasn't just bitter. It was scorched earth, fought with a kind of silent, brutal warfare that leaves no visible scars but annihilates a landscape of family. She was a master manipulator, a virtuoso of victimhood. And I was naive, an architect who believed in the integrity of structures, even emotional ones. I thought that as long as I paid child support on time, was generous with the college fund I'd been building since the day she was born, now sitting at over $85,000, and stuck doggedly to the visitation schedule, I could still be a father to my little girl. For the first 2 years, it worked, albeit strained, like a bridge holding weight it was never designed to bear. Abigail would come over on alternating weekends. We'd see movies, get ice cream, and the whole time I could feel Evelyn's narrative seeping in a subtle, insidious poison. Your father always prioritized work over us. He never really understood the meaning of family. He's so rigid, so unfeeling. Then the Switzerland opportunity came up. Evelyn called me, her voice slick with a faux sympathy that, in hindsight, should have set off every alarm bell in my head. "It's a once-in-a-lifetime chance, Michael. The best music academy in Europe. Her grandfather has connections there. She'll have a much better future there, away from all this." All this, meaning me. The communication dwindled. Phone calls became infrequent. Scheduled affairs that felt more like interrogations, then stopped altogether. Emails to her personal account bounced back. My heartfelt letters, filled with news of my life, questions about hers, and assurances of my love, sent to the address Evelyn provided in Zurich when unanswered. I was heartbroken, but I believed it. I believed my daughter was pursuing her dream in a foreign land and, in the process, naturally drifting away from the father she'd been taught to resent. I tortured myself with the thought that I hadn't fought hard enough, that I should have been a better father, a better man, to deserve her love. Now, watching her play our song on a local news broadcast, I knew it was all a fabrication, a meticulously constructed lie designed to erase me completely from my daughter's life, to kill me off and bury the memory of me so deep that even my ghost couldn't haunt her. I have to go to her, I said to Sarah, my voice tight with mixture of pure, undiluted rage and a terrifying, giddy hope that felt like a lifeline thrown into a chasm. Go where? Michael. You can't just storm into a competition or her school. She thinks you're dead. Sarah's practicality was a necessary bucket of cold water. You need to be smart about this. If you confront her publicly, you could traumatize her. And you can bet Evelyn will have a restraining order on you before you can even say paternity test. This has to be handled with care, for Abigail's sake. She was right. The rage was a white-hot fire in my belly, but it was a luxury I couldn't afford. This required the cold, precise calculation of a demolition expert. One wrong move and the whole fragile structure of Abigail's reality could collapse on her. The first thing I did that very night was hire a private investigator, a grizzled former detective named Frank Russo. I gave him the news clip, Abigail's full name, and the scant details I had. Find her, I told him, my voice shaking. Find my daughter. Within 48 hours, Frank had a dossier. She and Evelyn were living in a sleek, modern apartment in the city where the competition was held, an apartment paid for, I noted with a fresh wave of fury, with the child support I'd been dutifully sending to a bank account Evelyn controlled. Abigail was enrolled as a senior at the Lincoln School for the Arts. There was no Switzerland, no grandparents, no elite academy. It had all been a smoke screen, a gilded cage built on a foundation of lies. Frank even managed to get a few discreet photos. Abigail walking to school, her shoulders slumped, her face a mask of a concentration I mistook for sadness. Evelyn loading groceries into a late-model SUV, looking poised and utterly unburdened. My next move was legal. I went to my lawyer, Brenda, a sharp, no-nonsense woman with the tenacity of a pit bull who had navigated the treacherous waters of my divorce. I laid out the facts, my voice cracking only once. The fraudulent relocation, the intercepted communication, the false declaration of my death. Brenda listened, her expression growing grimmer by the minute, her pen tapping a staccato rhythm on her legal pad. This is extreme, Michael. This is beyond parental alienation. This is a form of psychological abuse, she finally said, her voice low and serious. This is one of the most severe cases I've seen. We can and will file for an emergency hearing to reinstate your custody rights immediately. The courts do not look kindly on this. We have enough for a prima facie case of intentional infliction of emotional distress. But, Michael, she paused, leaning forward, her eyes full of professional concern that mirror my personal terror. The emotional damage to Abigail is already done and it's profound. We need to think like surgeons, not soldiers. We need a plan for how to reintroduce you without causing her further, irreparable psychological harm. We devised a plan. Brenda would file the motion, and we would aggressively request the court-appointed guardian ad litem, a neutral attorney specifically for Abigail, to assess the situation and help facilitate a safe, controlled reintroduction. It was the right way, the responsible way. But every fatherly fiber of my being screamed to just drive to that apartment, pound on the door, and gather my sobbing daughter into my arms, to prove with my physical presence that I was real, that I was alive. The emergency hearing was set for a week later. The night before, I was a wreck. I couldn't sleep. I paced the length of my home, the silence pressing in on me. I ended up in my study, scrolling through a digital archive of old photos and videos of Abigail, from when she was a gap-toothed 7-year-old building elaborate Lego castles with me, to a lanky 13-year-old, rolling her eyes at my jokes but still sneaking a smile. The ache of loss was a physical pain in my chest. I was mourning a living daughter, a cruelty I couldn't fully comprehend. It was in this state of raw, sleepless agony at 2:17 a.m. that a new email notification popped up on my screen. The sender was abigails.pianostudio@mail.com. The subject line was a single devastating question. Is this real? My heart didn't just stop. It felt like it shriveled in my chest. A.J. Abigail James. It was an address I didn't recognize, but the name was hers. With trembling fingers that felt thick and clumsy, I opened it. Asterisk, I don't know if this email address still works. Mom said you changed everything after the divorce, that you wanted a clean break from us. I found an old notebook today while I was cleaning out my closet. It had this email written on the back cover from when I was a kid. Something happened today that made me look for it. A man came to my school, said he was a journalist from the city paper doing a background piece on the competition finalists. He asked me about dedicating my performance to my late father. I told him what I always say, what Mom told me, that you died in a car accident on the I-95 when I was 13. He looked confused. Then he asked what you did for a living. I told him you were an architect. He said, "That's interesting." The Michael James I first found in my preliminary research, an architect from your hometown, is listed as very much alive. He even won a design award last year. Asterisk, I didn't know what to say. I think I just mumbled something and walked away from him. I felt dizzy. I went home and confronted my mom. She got hysterical, said the man was a liar, a fraud, that he was probably paid by you to find us and harass us. She said you fake your own death to avoid child support and legal responsibilities, and only resurface now because you found out about my success and want a piece of it. She said a lot of things, terrible things about your character. My whole world feels like it's made of paper, and it's starting to tear right down the middle. I don't know what to believe. If you are getting this, please, I need you to tell me the truth. Are you alive? And if you are, why did you leave us? Why did you let me think you were dead? I read the email 5 times, 10 times, tears streaming down my face, dripping onto the keyboard. This was it. This was a crack in Evelyn's fortress, the chink in her armor of lies. It wasn't me who found her. It was her, reaching out from the darkness, guided by a memory and a suspicious journalist. I had to be careful. One wrong word, one hint of the anger I felt towards Evelyn, could send her scurrying back into the fold. Convinced her mother was right about me, I wrote back immediately, my own words a desperate prayer, keeping them simple, direct, and saturated with love I hadn't been able to express for 2 long years. My dearest Abigail, yes, I am alive. I have never been more alive than I am at this moment. Reading your words, I feel like a man who has been holding his breath for years and can finally exhale. I never left you, not for a single day. I never changed my email, my phone number, or my address. I have written to you every month for the past 2 years, care of an address in Zurich that your mother gave me. I have paid child support without fail every month into an account your mother specified. I have the college fund for you, just as I always promised, sitting in a trust, waiting for you. Your mother told me you were in Switzerland at a music academy. She sent me brochures, an address, everything. I believed her. I thought you were happy and pursuing your dreams, and that you simply didn't need me anymore. I thought my presence in your life was a burden from the past. I saw you on the news the other night. That's how I found out you were here, in the same state, and that you believed I was dead. Hearing you play our song was the most beautiful and the most heartbreaking sound I have ever heard. I have never faked anything. I have never stopped loving you. Not for 1 second. You are my daughter, and the idea that you've been living with this terrible, terrible lie, that you've been grieving for me, breaks me in a way I cannot describe. There is a court hearing tomorrow morning to officially reunite us. I know this is a tsunami of information, and it's scary and it's confusing. You don't have to do anything. I will be there, fighting to see you, to talk to you, to finally tell you my side of the story, the true story. No matter what you've been told, I love you. I have always loved you. You are my greatest masterpiece. Dad. I hit send and felt a profound, seismic shift within me. The truth was out. The ball was in her court. The weight of helplessness was replaced by the fierce, burning certainty of a father fighting for his child. The next day in family court was surreal, a scene from a bad legal drama that was my horrifying reality. Evelyn was there, flanked by her own high-powered attorney. She looked at me with a cold, pure fury that could have frozen hell. She looked like a cornered animal, dangerous and desperate. Just before we were called into the judge's chambers, a court officer approached me. "Mr. James, your daughter, Abigail, is here." She requested to speak to the judge directly. My breath caught in my throat. I looked over and saw her, standing in the sterile, fluorescent-lit hallway, looking small and pale and impossibly young in a simple black dress. She was wringing her hands, a nervous habit she'd had since she was a toddler. Our eyes met. Hers were wide, filled with a storm of confusion, fear, betrayal, and a flicker of something else, recognition. I offered a small, tentative, tear-filled smile. She didn't smile back, but she didn't look away. It was a start. The judge, a stern-faced woman named Judge Roberts with a reputation for zero tolerance for parental nonsense, listened as Brenda presented our case, laying out the evidence with clinical precision. The news segment, the PI's report, the return letters, the bank statements. Then she allowed Abigail to speak. My daughter stood, her voice initially a whisper, then growing stronger, clearer, filled with a pain that made my soul ache. "Your Honor," she began, "for the last 2 years, I believed my father was dead. I grieved for him. I have a box of his old things in my closet, a tie, a favorite book, a coffee mug he always used, that I would sometimes hold because it was all I had left of him. I dedicated every performance to his memory. Yesterday, a journalist told me my father might be alive, and then he emailed me and confirmed it." She turned and looked directly at Evelyn, her voice cracking with a devastating blend of love and anguish. "Mom, why? Why would you do that? Why would you make me live in a world where my father was dead? What did you think that would do to me?" Evelyn broke down. It wasn't a calculated performance for the judge. It was the raw, ugly, snotty collapse of someone whose meticulously constructed house of cards had finally been blown down by the hurricane of truth. She sobbed about her own pain, her heartbreak after the divorce, her paralyzing fear of losing Abigail to me, her twisted belief that I was a toxic influence who didn't deserve our daughter after abandoning the family. The judge listened, her face an impassive mask, but I saw a flicker of pity in her eyes when she looked at Abigail. When it was my turn, my voice was thick with emotion, but I kept it steady. "Your Honor, all I want is a chance to be my daughter's father again. However she'll have me, for as long as she'll have me. I don't want to punish Evelyn. I just want my daughter back." The ruling was swift and unequivocal. Evelyn's custody was immediately and indefinitely suspended, pending a full psychological evaluation for both her and Abigail. I was granted temporary primary physical and legal custody. A court-appointed family therapist, Dr. Evans, was mandated to help Abigail navigate the monumental betrayal and guide our fragile reintroduction. The guardian ad litem will remain involved to ensure Abigail's wishes were heard throughout the process. The first few days of my home were awkward, shrouded in a heavy, palpable silence. Abigail moved into the guest room I had always hoped would be hers. She was quiet, withdrawn, observing Sarah and me like we were alien creatures, studying our interactions, our domestic routines, with a deep and wary curiosity. We didn't push. We gave her space, a wide berth of unconditional welcome. I showed her the physical box where I kept all the returned letters from Zurich. Their unopened envelopes, a silent testament to my futile efforts. I showed her the bank statements for the college fund. I answered every single one of her questions with brutal, painful honesty about the divorce, my failings in the marriage, my relationship with Sarah, the timeline of everything. I held nothing back. The breakthrough, the moment the ice began to crack, came about a week later. She was standing in the living room, looking at a photo on the mantelpiece, a picture of me, Sarah, and the grainy black and white ultrasound image. "So you're really having a baby," she said, her tone flat, unreadable. "Yes," I said gently, coming to stand beside her, but not too close. "And this baby, your brother or sister, will be incredibly lucky to have you as a big sister. But I need you to understand, Abby, no one will ever replace you. You are my first. You are the one who made me a dad. You taught me what love really is." She was silent for a long, long time, just staring at the photo. Then a single tear traced a path down her cheek, followed by another. She whispered, so softly I almost missed it, "I missed you, Dad. Even when I thought you were a ghost, even when I was angry at you for dying, I missed you every single day." We both cried then, holding each other for the first time in years, sobbing in the middle of the living room. It wasn't a perfect fix. It was messy and snotty and raw. The road to rebuilding trust was long and paved with landmines. She was rightfully, furiously angry at Evelyn for the lie and at me in a more complicated, nuanced way for what she perceived as my absence and lack of fight in the final years of the marriage. Therapy with Dr. Evans was painful and slow, a necessary excavation of trauma. Months later, as high school graduation approached, we finally had the college talk. She had been accepted to the New England Conservatory, a dream school, a validation of her immense talent. It was staggeringly expensive. "The offer still stands, Abby," I told her one evening over a quiet dinner, "just the two of us. The fund is yours. It always has been. No strings attached. No guilt. It's just what a father does." She looked at me, her eyes, so like her mother's in shape and color, now held a clarity and depth that was entirely her own. "I want to use it," she said, her voice firm, "but on one condition." "Anything," I said, my heart in my throat. "I want us to continue family therapy, you and me, for at least my first year of college. Maybe on video call. I can't have you disappearing again. I can't have everything just go back to normal and pretend this never happened. I need to know you're in this for the long haul, that you're not just going to get bored or distracted once the new baby comes." It was the easiest, most reasonable condition I had ever been offered. "Abby, I would go to therapy with you every week for the rest of my life, if that's what you need. It's a deal." The money was transferred directly to the conservatory. On her graduation day, I sat in the audience, Sarah holding my hand, her belly beautifully, prominently round. When Abigail's name was called, she walked across the stage with a grace and confidence I hadn't seen in her since she was a child. She took her diploma, shook the principal's hand, and then, before descending the steps, she looked directly at me in the crowd, found my face among the thousands, and smiled. A real, genuine Abby smile, one that reached her eyes and lit up her whole face. It was a smile of forgiveness, of hope, of a future she was finally allowing herself to believe in. Evelyn was not there. She had voluntarily entered an intensive, inpatient therapy program herself, finally confronting the deep-seated issues that had led her to commit such a devastating act. Abigail was slowly, cautiously, and with Dr. Evans's guidance, rebuilding a relationship with her, one with firm, non-negotiable boundaries and a lot of professional oversight. There was no dramatic movie-style forgiveness, but there was a glimmer of understanding for the profoundly broken and sick woman her mother had become. I looked at my daughter, radiant on that stage, a survivor, and then at Sarah and the new life growing within her. The ghost had been laid to rest. The lie had been shattered, its pieces swept away, and in its place we were painstakingly, tenderly, brick by brick, building something real again, something stronger for having been tested by fire, a family not defined by its past fractures, but by its determination to heal.